In this video, we're going to build the logic for completing a task. So when the user clicks the check, the item disappears and is archived on the completed page. So we're going to need to add some logic to our check here, as well as build out our completed page. So let's start with this completed page, because really it's just a duplicate of this tasks, but showing different items, completed items over here. So here's our tasks page. So we can come over here and just right click and duplicate the page. Then let's rename this to completed. And then we can come in here and change this text here to completed. And then let's change what we show here. So if you remember, we have a backend query on our list view. So if we come in here and edit it, we have two filters set up. So we're filtering it so it's just the logged in users tasks that we see, but also where the completed field is equal to false. So it's not completed. Well, on this page, we want to show only the completed. So we can just change this filter to true. So if the task is completed, then we show it. Beautiful. And that's it. Now let's implement the checking logic. So let's double click into our component here and go to our checkbox. And if we want to apply any logic to this checkbox, we want to come over to our action flow editor and add an action. Okay, so what do we want to happen? Well, when the user toggles this on, we want to update that document in our backend, the task document, and we want to update the field. So this field, our completed property, to true. It is completed. And because we're filtering on that in both our tasks page and our completed page, then the displaying is already handled. But we run into a problem here. Because we're using a component, that is, this one component is used for each task, both here and on our completed page, how do we tell this action which document to update? Well, you could say this problem in another way. The logic that we're applying to our checkbox right here is going to be different, is going to change for every instance of this component. And that should sound a little bit familiar, because when we're setting up our parameters, we said that the things that should be parameters are the things that change every time you use your component. And this is just another change. Now, before it was a change in text or maybe a change in color, but here it's a change in logic. But that doesn't matter. It works the same way. And the logic will be different because we will change a different document every time the user clicks this button. So this action should just be another parameter. So we need to take the same steps as we do on all the other parameters. That is, define it, bind it, and then pass it. So let me show you. So remember, we click off onto the canvas here to get to our parameters. Then we come in here and we want to add a parameter. This time it will be an action. So we can call this check action, and the type will be action. Then we can confirm this, and that's it. We've defined it. Now we need to bind it. Well, this is an action, so we need to bind it where the action is. So we're over here, we have our toggle on action, and this is called a callback. So we want to execute a callback. Then we select which callback. It's the one we just defined, and our binding is done. Finally, pass it. And we do that on each page where this is used. So let's go to our task. And when we scroll down to our component properties, you can see we've got this check action property. And we've got a mini action flow editor because, of course, we're just binding an action. So what action do we want here? Well, we're updating a document. This is just a normal document update. So we're going into our Firestore here. We're updating a document. Then we have to select which document it is that we're updating. We want a document reference right here. And we've already got this because we're inside that list view that has a backend query on it. So we can open it up and get a reference to that task. Beautiful. And confirm. Now we can set which fields we want to update. And the only one we care about here is that completed property. And we want to set it to true. And that's it. This logic has been applied correctly. All right, let's test this out. All right, so let's check this off and it's gone. But how can we see it? So if you run into this, let me show you 2 ways to get to the page you want to see. First, you can change the page you have set in your initial page right here. So here I've got my logged in page set to tasks. If you want to see those completed ones, you can just go to completed right here. Then when you reload, you can see that completed task. Beautiful. The other way is to set up navigation, but I'll show you that in the next video. But while we're here, there's an interesting question. We're on the completed page, and what's going to happen if I click this button? Well, nothing, sort of. You see, the logic is set up so that when you click it, it sets that property to false. And then we're displaying only the completed items, so we still see it here. But the UI is changing. And this isn't a good behavior because the UI is contradicting the logic. So how would we fix that? Well, let's go into here. And if we double click into our component, you can see that the checkbox has this property of disabled options. So if we turn this on, we can set a variable in here to disable this checkbox. So you can't do that clicking UI behavior. All right, so what's the best way to bind this value? As with most things in FlutterFlow, there are many ways to do things, but you want to think about what is going to be the simplest solution, the solution that's most scalable and maintainable. And it can be helpful in these scenarios to ask yourself, what do I already have available? And you can see that inside this component, we've already got this tasks document. And that's helpful because the UI, whether it's checked or not, is directly tied to the completed property. So if it's completed, if it's true, then we want it disabled. So we can just come in here, get document property, get our completed property, and confirm. So now if we preview it, the button is disabled, except for now we get another behavior. And so if I actually click on this, it brings us into that task details page. Now, maybe you want this, but let's say you didn't. How would we fix that? Well, this is easy. We can go back to our completed page and come to our tasks right here and simply remove that navigate action. And you may be wondering, what does Flutter do when you have nested tap actions? So we have an action set on this checkbox, which is inside the component that also has an action on it. Well, Flutter efficiently manages nested taps by using a direct hit testing mechanism and a gesture disambiguation process. What does that mean? Well, it simply means that Flutter is able to ensure that the most specific widget under the tap location will respond to the event. And after we disable that check, the most specific event was that navigate action. Before, the most specific event was that checkbox. But what if we wanted a different behavior? What if we wanted it so that the user could check it again and then it would be put back on that original tasks page? Like maybe they clicked it by accident. How would we do that? Well, remember, this is a question of changing logic, and that's handled through our action parameters, because parameters are the things that change whenever you use a component. So if we go into our component here and go into our check, we can see that we've got this execute callback, which is just where we're binding that action as a parameter just like any other parameter, because this will change every time it's used. But you can see that this is triggered on toggled on. So if we open this up, we can see that we've got this other logic for on toggled off, which is what we want. That is, we want to change the value of completed when this is clicked off. So we can just apply the same logic. So let's grab this right here. Let's copy that action and let's paste that action in. So this is our second step of parameters. And then remember, our third step is to pass that action. So let's go back to our completed page into our item right here, and let's pass the action we need. What do we want to do? Well, we want to update a Firestore document. So let's add an action. It's going to be in our backend database, Firestore, update a document. Which document is it? It's our task document that we're in, and we want a reference right up here. We want a reference to it, confirm, and then just change the completed field to false. Beautiful. The last thing we need to do is we need to turn off that disabling logic. So let's go back into our component here to our checkbox, and we can just remove this. Beautiful. Let's test it out. So now when we uncheck it, boom, it's gone. Let's switch our page and take a look. And there it is. Beautiful. And that's how to build the logic for completing a task.